Hello. Today we're going to do test 9 of the paper versions of the digital SAT. Module 2, I already did Module 1, previous video. We do Module 2, again using the CAS calculator and Desmos. Just like all the other times I've gone through these math questions, these math videos, you don't have to use Desmos CAS calculator. A lot of these things you can do multiple ways. I'm just going to show you one or a couple of ways that I think are really good to do them. And you just do whatever works for you. All right, so number 1 says what value of W is the solution to the given equation. So our calculator is very good at finding solutions. So we're going to pull up our calculator. We can do menu 3-1. And then it's W plus 7 equals 357, comma W. We get W equals 350. All right, so number 2. Which expression is equivalent to 16 times x plus 15? So whenever you have a question that says which expression is equivalent, we can pick numbers for the letters. I always say start with 3. If there was a second letter here, I would probably just pick 4. If there was a third letter, I would then pick 5 for each respective one. So in the given equation, wherever we see x, we're going to plug in 3 and see what we get. Again, I'm just going to use the calculator to do it. We're not using anything special. We're not solving anything, so I'm not going to use a solve function. We're just doing regular math. So we're just going to calculate what that is. So we get 288. So the equivalent expression should also give us 288. So I'm just going to go to each answer and guess and check. So we're going to do 16 times 3 plus 31. So that did not give us the same outcome. So we'll try answer choice B. So 16 times 3 plus 240. And we get the same 288. So the answer is B. All right, number 3. So it says the table summarizes members of a local organization by age and whether they live east or west of the river. If a member of the organization is selected at random, what is the probability that the selected member is at least 40 years old? So for this one, we're not doing any subcategory. We're picking from everybody here. So the bottom number is just going to be the total number, which is 135. And of all of the people, they want to know what is probability of selecting a member that is at least 40 years old. So they didn't say which side of the river. They just said at least 40. So we're going to think about the total of 140, of over 40, excuse me, which is 107. The answer is D. All right, number 4. The solution to the given system of equations is xy. What is the value of y? So they want to find the y solution. So our calculator can find solutions to systems of equations. We just do menu 3-7, solve system of equations, 2 equations, x and y. So then we just type it in, 3x equals 12. Move down to the bottom one, negative 3x plus y equals negative 6. And they want the y solution, so we get y equals 6. All right, number 5. A line in the xy plane has a slope of 1 over 9 and passes through the point 0, 14. Which equation represents this line? So in my opinion, there's 2 really good ways to do this question. The quickest way, where we don't have to do any math, is recognize that all these lines, all these answers are written as y equals mx plus b. Well, they told us the slope, m, is 1/9. And then remember, b is our y-intercept. And what it means to be the y-intercept is it's the value of y when x is 0. Well, if you look at the point they gave us 0, 14. So they gave us when x is 0 what the y would be, which means that our y-intercept is going to be that positive 14. So our line would have to be y equals 1 over 9 times x plus 14. The answer is D. Another really good way to do this is to use Desmos. Desmos will give us the equation of the line written as y equals mx plus b, but we have to have 2 points. So right now we have 1 point, and I'll do this in a different color. Right now we have 1 point, and our point is at 0, comma 14. Again, that's the point they gave us. And the slope is 1 over 9. Well, having a slope of 1 over 9 means that the y is going to move up 1 or increase by 1, and then x is going to move to the right or increase by 9. So what we can do is just add 1 to the y and add 9 to the x to where now we have a second point. So now that we have 2 points, we can use Desmos to just find the equation of this line. So what we can do is we can add a table, and then we're just going to type the points in that they gave us. So 0, 14. And then we found the other point, which is 9, 15. And as soon as we put a second point, this little symbol pops up that says add regression. We're going to click it, and then we want linear regression. Now, what's the annoying thing with Desmos? It will give us the answer as a decimal, but we can see here that we have our equation. It's y equals 0.111111x. So it's definitely positive. So I could just look at the answers and realize it's either C or D, because those are the only ones that have positive slopes. And then it should be plus 14, which again is D. Of course, we could take our answers and make those into decimals. So I could just take the 1/9 and type it into our calculator and make it a decimal and see, do I get the 0.1111? And it's more just guessing and checking and seeing which one has the same decimal value. Again, so Desmos is very good at finding the equation of a line as long as it has 2 points and as long as we want to write the equation as y equals mx plus b. We can just type the 2 points into our table and then hit the symbol. All right, number 6. In the figure shown, line C intersects parallel lines S and T. What is the value of X? So anytime you have parallel lines with a intersecting line, all the angles that I'm marking with the same color are all going to be the same value. And then same thing for this other color. So all these green ones will all be the same value. And then if I take one of each, they will add up to 180. So here, I could think of this angle right here as also being X. So that 110 plus X should add up to give us 180 degrees. So we could say that these two angles are supplementary to each other. Well, now that we just came up with an equation, we could solve that equation in our calculator, menu 3-1. So again, 110 plus X equals 180, comma X, not W, X. So we X equals 70. All right. Number 7. The function f is defined by the given equation. What is the value of f of x when x equals 3 over 11? So they're telling us just make x 3 over 11. So we could say f of x, which we are saying is 3 over 11, should equal x, which they just told us is 3 over 11, plus 8 over 11. So we don't have to use the solve function. We're just doing regular math. Again, I'm going to use the calculator, but we're just adding two fractions. So we're not solving for a letter that we don't know. We already have that function by itself. So then we'll do another fraction, 8 over 11. Get 1. All right, number 8. The table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of y. There is a linear relationship between x and y. Which of the following equations represents this relationship? So they're asking for the equation line. And again, I would recognize that all the answers are written as y equals mx plus b. So I have points, 3 points, and they're asking for the equation as y equals mx plus b. So I can pull up Desmos, and we're going to do the same thing we did with the question before. We're going to make a table. We're going to type in our points. We only need 2 points, but we'll go ahead and just put all 3. We don't have to. We just have to do 2 of them. And again, notice how we have the little symbol pop up. And then it tells us the equation is y equals negative 5x plus 18. So the answer is D. All right. Number 9. which ordered pair, x, y, is a solution to the given system of equations. So we're trying to find the solution to a system, which means we use our calculator. So menu 3, 7, enter, enter. So x plus 7 equals 10. And then the second equation is parentheses x plus 7 squared equals y. And enter. So we get x equals 3, y equals 100. That's the answer A. So number 10. The function f is defined by f of x equals 7x minus 84. What is the x-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane? So by them saying x-intercept, they're saying that the y equals 0. And just remember, they told us here that y is equal to f of x. So that means we could think of it as f of x equals 0. So wherever we see f of x, we can substitute in 0. So in our equation, we have f of x right here. So we're going to replace that with 0. So 0 equals 7x minus 84. So we can now solve for x. So pull up our calculator, menu 3, 1, 0 equals 7x minus 84, comma x. So we get x equals 12. And then the y we already know is 0. You could also graph the function in Desmos and just see where it hits the x-axis. I'll show you that real quick. Desmos does just put a nice little dot on the x and y intercept. So graphing this equation, 7x minus 84. So it does put a nice little dot on the x-intercept, and I can even tap it, and there it's showing us the x-intercept. I like both methods. I think there are situations where knowing that the x-intercept means that y should be 0 is going to be a little bit nicer rather than just graphing it. But graphing in Desmos is a very good way to try to see the x and y intercepts as long as you know the functions or the equations. All right, number 11. Rosa opened a savings account at a bank. The table shows the exponential relationship between the time t and years since Rosa opened the account and the total amount in dollars in the account. If Rosa made no additional deposits or withdrawals, which of the following equations best represents the relationship between t and n? So t is the number of years, n is the number of dollars that Rosa has in her account. So whenever they give us a table of values and it's vertical like this, even if they're using different letters, we actually can always think of the left column as being the x and the right column as being the y. So here they're using letters t and n. So here these two columns would be t and n. And what I'm basically saying is we could pretend like t is x, and then we could pretend like n is the y. And the reason I'm saying that is because they gave us points and they're asking for the equation. Now, it's not linear, but what we can do is we can still use Desmos, but we're turning this question into a guess and check question. And you could do this by hand, where you plug in the numbers by hand and just see, do the points work? But we're going to do it graphically. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a table and we're going to put the points. So 604, 1, 606.42, and then 2, 608.84. Now we're going to have to zoom out and move up just a little bit so that way we can kind of see our points. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on these. So let's just zoom in on these points. And what we're going to do is we're just going to graph all of the answers until they give us something that should be really close to the points. And the reason why here I'm saying really close is because they're saying which equation best represents. And that's actually a tell that we're not going to get the exact equation, but it'll be really close. One of them will be closer compared to all the others. So we're just going to graph every answer until we do that. The reason why I was saying that the x and the y for t and n respectively is because I'm not sure if we do, and we'll actually try it. We'll see. It may not allow us to use It's probably going to want us to add sliders. Oh no, it actually does work. Nice. What I was going to say is you may have to replace the letters with X and Y if they're acting what we would normally put in as X and Y. So when you and I write that equation, we'd probably say Y for the dollar amount and X for the years. But they just decided to use different letters. But we could actually even use the same letters. I just learned that right now. Cool. So this is not really close. It's close for 1, but we'll leave it and we'll just see as 1 closer. So again, we're going to do the second equation. So 1 plus 0.004 to the power t. And we can see here it's not even in anywhere close because it's not even near the equations, the dots. So we'll try answer choice C. So n equals 604, parentheses 1 plus 0.004 to the power t. If you notice, those passed directly through those lines. I'll even turn off these other graphs. That passes directly through our points. So the answer is C, or at least it's super close if it's not even directly on it. So the answer is going to be C. Again, you could guess and check by using math and actually calculating it, but Desmos allows us to visually see, does it pass through those points? All right. Number 12. The function W models the volume of liquid in milliliters in a container t seconds after it begins draining from a hole at the bottom. According to the model, what is the predicted volume in milliliters draining from the container each second? So this question is testing us on interpreting lines. So they're asking for a rate because they're asking what is predicted volume draining from the container each second. So they're kind of saying, hey, we're going to do milliliters per second. And the reason I'm saying that is because when looking at a line written as y equals mx plus b, which is actually what we have up here, this is our mx, and then this is our b. So they just kind of flipped the order. The rate is always the slope. So our slope could also be thought of as a rate. So they're asking for the rate, which means they're basically just asking, what is the slope? So looking at this line, the slope is -4, and the negative just means that it's leaving the container or being drained. So that's why here the answer would be +4, because you wouldn't say I'm draining -4 milliliters. You're draining 4 milliliters, but that is being taken away from the volume. So that's why in our line, we do put the minus sign. All right, number 13. For the linear function h, b is a constant and h of 0 equals 45. What is the value of b? So this is a question where they're giving us the x right here, and they're giving us the h of 0, which is kind of like saying our y. So what we could do is we could substitute that in. So we could say, hey, we have 45 equals our x, which we said was 0, plus b. And now we could solve for b here. We're just going to go ahead and say 45 equals b, because 0 plus b, the 0 just kind of goes away. So b is 45. All right, 14. What is one of the solutions to the given equation? So they're asking us to find the solution. Well, we have the equation, so we can pull up our calculator, do menu 3(1), and we can just do z squared plus 10z minus 24 equals 0, comma z. Got to tell the calculator what to solve for. So we either get z equals -12 or 2. If they ever say what is one of the solutions, you could actually put either solution. You could put -12 or you could put +2. You can bubble in either one, or type in either one, excuse me. Negative answers are allowed unless they say which of the following is the positive solution, and then they're being more specific. Here, either one would be correct. All right, 15. Triangle FGH is similar to triangle JKL, where angle F corresponds to angle J, and angles G and K are right angles. If sine of f is 308 over 317, what is the sine of j? So what it means to say that triangles are similar, it means that they have the same angles. And here they told us that angle F corresponds, which means equals, angle J. They're meant to be the same angle within the respective triangle. They gave us the sine of F, and then they're asking for the sine of J. Well, F and J are the same angle, so their sines are going to be the same. So since the sine of F is 308 over 317, the sine of J is also going to be 308 over 317. With some of these questions, it is really smart to draw it and to kind of draw these two triangles and mark them up. But here, since they gave us the same angles, we can get away with just saying that their trig values will be the same. All right, 16. The population of Greenville increased by 7% from 2015 to 2016. If the 2016 population is K times the 2015 population, what is the value of K? So we'll do the first sentence. They said 2016 the population increased by 7% from 2015 to 2016. So we could say that the 2016 population, I'm going to call that Y actually, and we're going to call X the 2015 population. So they're saying that Y is going to be the 2015 population, but increased by 7%. So to increase, we're going to do our parentheses, and we're going to do 1 plus our percentage over 100. So that right there is showing that Y, 2016, is 2015's population then being increased by 7%. So then the next part, the if the 2016 population is, so again, I called the 2016 population Y. So Y is K times the 2016 population, which is X. They want to know what K is. So what we could think about this is I just made a system of equations, so we can actually go and solve this system. And we can just solve for X and Y. So I'm going to just do menu 3, 7, enter. I'm just going to type this in. Now here we have, I put a letter in front of a parentheses, so I'm going to have to put the times sign. So X times parentheses 1 plus 7 over 100. And then the second equation, we'll do Y equals K times X, because I have a letter next to a letter. And so it gives us some weird stuff. But if I go up, it actually will just straight up tell us the value of K. Now, here's the one thing that's a little bit tough. Our calculator gave it to us as a fraction, but if we look at all the answers, they want the decimal. So all I have to do, I don't have to copy anything. I can just hit Control Enter. It's going to redo the same calculations before, but now it's giving all of our answers as fractions. And here we can now see that K is 1.07. The answer is C. Again, there's other ways to kind of think about this question. This is just one way to do it. All right, number 17. It says each of the dot plots shown represents the number of glue sticks brought in by each student for two classes, Class A and Class B. Which statement best compares the standard deviations of the numbers of glue sticks brought in by each student for these two classes? So there are two really good ways to do this. One is in Desmos. You can do standard deviation in Desmos. We'll do that here. The negative with this method is it does take longer. So what we can do is we can just type stdev and then put parentheses, and then we just type the numbers, putting commas between them, however many times they show up. So I put 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, because this is Class A. 6 shows up 6 times, 6, and then 7 shows up 7 times, 6, 7. So it tells us the standard deviation, and then what we could do is do the same thing for Class B. So again, I'll type stdev for standard deviation, and then I type in these numbers. So it's 14, comma 15, comma 16, comma 16, comma 16, and then 17 shows up 4 times, then 18 shows up 5 times, 19 shows up 6 times, and then 20 shows up 7 times. What's the annoying thing with this method? We have to type things in correctly. In fact, I just lost count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And what do we notice about the standard deviations here? They are equal to each other. So if we look at A, the standard deviation number of glue sticks provided by each student of class A is less than the standard deviation. No. B, the standard deviation of the number of glue sticks provided by each student of class A is equal to the standard deviation. Yes. So the answer is B. There is another way to do this, which can be more efficient with time. It's just something that a lot of us tend to forget, and that's why I do like Desmos. Desmos will actually just calculate it for us. The other way to think about standard deviation is it's how spread out the data is. And if we look at these two classes, they have the same spread. The dot spread is exactly the same for the two classes. So since their dots are spread out the exact same, their standard deviations are the same. So standard deviation is how spread out your data is. The more spread out it is, the larger the standard deviation gets. So here, they have the same spread, so they have the same standard deviation, aka equal standard deviations. All right. Number 18. The function m gives the predicted body mass m of t in kilograms of a certain animal t days after it was born in a wildlife reserve, where t has to be less than or equal to 390. Which of the following is the best interpretation of the statement m of 33 is approximately equal to 362 in this context? So another way to write that is m of 330 equals 362. So I'm just making that more of like a math way to write that rather than saying it as words. Well, remember, inside our parentheses based off this function up here is t. You can see up here we have this t up here. And they told us that t is the number of days after the animal was born. So here our t is 330. So that means we're talking about 330 days after it was born. And then what our function is equal, the entire m of t represents the body mass. So our m of t is equal to 362. So 330 days after, this animal will have a body mass of 362. So we're just going to look for an answer that says something like the body mass is 362 after 330 days of being born, or something similar to that. So answer is A. The predicted body mass of the animal was approximately 330 kilograms 362 days after it was born. No, that flipped the two numbers. So I'm looking at B. The predicted body mass of the animal was approximately 362 kilograms 330 days after it was born. Boom, that's exactly what we're looking for. So the answer is B. So we don't have to look at all these other values, all these other answers. All right, number 19. Triangle XYZ is similar to triangle RST such that X, Y, and Z correspond to R, S, and T respectively. The measure of angle Z is 20 degrees and 2XY equals RS. What is the measure of angle T? So we're going to draw this. So we're just going to draw two triangles. So let's just say we have triangle. We'll call this X, Y, Z. And then triangle RST is similar to it. So whatever, I'm just going to draw a rough approximation, and R has to be in the same spot as X, so it's going to be R, and then S is in the same spot as Y, so S will go up here, and then T is in the same spot as Z. So they told us that Z is 20 degrees, and they want to know what is the measure of angle T. Well, remember, similar triangles have the same angles, so they're just asking for the angle. So since T and Z are in the same spot, their angles have to be the same. So that means T is also going to be 20. What they're talking about right here is the sides. So similar triangles have proportional sides, but they have equal angles. So that part that I've boxed is just there to kind of trick us, because they're going to say, hey, you should double the angle. No, similar triangles have congruent or equal angles. All right. Number 20. The function f of t is equal to 60,000 times 2, all to the power t over 410, and it gives the number of bacteria in a population t minutes after an initial observation. How much time in minutes does it take for the number of bacteria in the population to double? So what we're going to do is we're just going to label what everything here represents. So the 60,000 is the initial. So that's the number of bacteria we initially had. The 2 is telling us what we're multiplying by. So we're multiply by. So we're multiplying by 2 each time. The T, the only reason we care about the T is it tells us what unit we're in. And here they told us it is T minutes. Couldn't find it for a second. The number in front of T, so there isn't a number, so we're going to make the number. The number is a 1. There's a letter. There's always a number that can be placed in front of the letter. So what this 1 is telling us is the number of times, so number of times we are going to do our multiplication. So number of times we multiply. And again, what are we multiplying by? Whatever's in the parentheses. And then the number on the bottom of our fraction in the exponent is telling us the how long in the same unit as t. How long in same unit as t. So what this equation is telling us is it's telling us that we initially started with 60,000 bacteria. We're going to multiply by 2 one time every 410 minutes. So we're going to multiply by 2 one time every 410 minutes. So the question wants to know, how long will it take for this population to double? Well, if we're multiplying by 2, that's another way of saying doubling. So we're doubling once every 410 minutes. So it's going to take 410 minutes. As we just said, it's going to double one time every 410 minutes. There are other ways to do this problem. I've actually done this problem in another video where I do it the other ways. I think this is by far the fastest way, is being able to interpret that expression. So that's why for this one, I'm only going to do it this way. This does take a lot more understanding of exponentials, but it'll allow us to move through the test a little bit quicker. And I think for a lot of us, that will be beneficial because the timing of the SAT has been pretty difficult for people to finish, especially when it's the second module for many of us. All right, number 21. The function f is defined by f of x equals a to the power x plus b, where a and b are constants, and a is greater than 0. In the xy plane, the graph of y equals f of x has a y-intercept at 0, -25, and passes through the point 2, 23. What is the value of a plus b? So this question, they gave us 2 points. So they give us 2 values of x and y that correspond with each other. So 0 corresponds with the -25 and the 2 corresponds with the 23. Well, what we have to realize is in our function, there's 2 letters that we don't know. Now, some people would say 4. We don't know f of x, we don't know x, and then we don't know a and b. But they're giving us values for x and f of x, or again, f of x is a fancy way of saying, we'll just even say y. So what we could do is we could take our points and plug them in. So I could say -25 will equal a to the power 0 plus b. And then take the other point and plug it in as well. So a to the 2 plus b. And what we can now see is we just made a system of equations. So what I can do is pull up our calculator. We can do menu, 3, 7, enter. And I'm going to go ahead and change the letters here. So I'm going to hit tab, and it's going to drop me down. And I'm going to put a, comma, b. Because in our equation, we're using the letters a and b. So now I can just type into my equation exactly how it's written. A to the power 0 plus b. And then 23 equals a squared plus b. So they want to know what is the value of a plus b. And notice how they did tell us up here, a has to be greater than 0. Because if we look at our solutions, I have 1 corresponding values of a and b where a is negative. So we don't want that one. We're going to look at where a equals 7. So I'm talking about this solution. And b equals negative 26. And we are going to do what? We're going to add those. So we're going to do 7 plus negative 26. So again, just do regular math. 7 plus negative 26. And we get negative 19. Okay. Number 22. So number 22, we're going to talk about two very good ways to do it. The reason I'm going to talk about two ways, one way is definitely going to be quicker. I just worry that it may not work 100% of the time. So far it has, but there's a little part of me that gets a little bit nervous. So I'm going to do it the long way first. So they're giving us an inequality, and they said for which of the following tables are all the values of x and their corresponding values of y solutions to the given inequality. So if we're ever dealing with inequalities on the SAT, there's a good chance you could probably use Desmos. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph the inequality. And what it's going to do is it is going to shade the solution region. So you can see here, we have it shaded. And so what we can do now is we're just going to guess and check all the answers. So I'm just going to make a table because it makes it easier for us to type the points. And I'm just going to plot all the points from answer choice A first and just see, does every dot lie in the shaded region? So this, if it looks, that doesn't look in the shaded region. It looks like it's on the dotted line. So we have to remember on the dotted line does not count, or on the dashed line does not count. It has to be a solid line for it to count. So here, A doesn't work. So then I would just go to B, and I'm going to just change my points. So it's 326. This is going to be 42. This is going to stay 86. And if we look, it looks like one of the dots definitely is not in the shaded region. So that is not going to work for us. So then we'll try answer choice C. So C makes this 16, and then 42, and then 81. And again, if we kind of look, doesn't look like it's quite in the shaded region, so hopefully it's D. We'll double check. So 26, 52, 91. And again, if we look, those do look in the shaded region. And then let's check the top one. So all of them are in the shaded region, so the answer is D. So the long way of doing this just means you have to guess and check. Again, if you know that you can instantly do this, this is where you can still have this guess and check way of doing it, and it doesn't take super long. What happens is, in my opinion, a lot of us sit and think about this question, and then that's where we kind of lose some time. Where my thought is, if you see this inequality, you can be like, I can graph this in Desmos and guess and check, and now it's just how long does it take you to type stuff. The fast way to do this is if they are saying that y is greater than something, what will usually happen with these questions is all the x's will be the same, and they're only going to be changing the y's, and that's exactly what's happening here. So this will work as long as all the x's are the same. What we're going to do is just pick the answer that has all of the biggest y values. So if we look at A, right now, if we kind of just go from answer choice A and down, A has all the biggest y values because it's the only answer we've looked at so far. So all the y's are as big as possible. But then when we look at B, B makes the first y value bigger compared to the first one, but it also actually makes the second y value get smaller. So right now, answer choice B doesn't have all of the largest y values. So most likely now the answer is not A or B because we want to have all the largest y values, or at least tied. So like here, the 86s are the same. So that's fine. So I would say it's most likely not A or B. So now I look at C, and I can already see C has 16, 42, 81. All of those are smaller than any other y value. And if we look at D, 26 is the biggest. It's tied for the biggest at least. 52 is the biggest, and 91 is the biggest. So answer choice D has all the biggest y values that are available. So that's going to have to be our answer. If they said y is less than something, instead of looking for the biggest numbers, you're going to pick the answer that has all of the smallest numbers. So that's the fast way of how to do these if you have a single inequality and they're saying which of the table values is the solutions. If it's greater than, just pick all the y values that are the biggest, or the answer has all the biggest y values. If they have less than, then pick all the smallest y values. You can always guess and check in Desmos. That'll work very, very, very often, and you can actually visually see it. It just takes a little bit longer because you actually have to type things out and do it that way. All right. Number 23. A certain town has an area of 4.36 square miles. What is the area in square yards of this town? So we have 4.36 square miles, and that's how we would actually write that. And we want to convert this to some sort of square yards, and that's how we write square yards. So as long as you know what the units are, here we know what miles are, we know what yards are, our calculator can do this question. So we're going to pull up the calculator, and we are going to hit the book. So it's on the right-hand side, right below the delete button. So we're going to hit the book, and then we're going to choose the conversion assistant. If it's not on this screen, just hit the 3. Even if it is on this screen, if you hit 3, it doesn't move. You're going to always choose conversion assistant. And then what we're going to do is under category, we're going to choose velocity always. So we're always choose velocity. You don't ever have to choose any other category. You can, if you know what unit you're looking for and everything. And then we're going to choose velocity, and then we're just going to hit enter. So again, notice how I used the up and down arrow and the left and right arrow. I didn't ever use the touchpad. I didn't actually ever go click OK. I just hit enter. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we have to put a number in the front. So we're going to put the number in the front. So we're going to delete the answer, and we're going to put the number that they gave us. So they give us 4.36 square miles. So right now when we choose velocity, if you notice it gave us a fraction, and it's in meters per second, but we didn't need a fraction. We're dealing with square miles. We didn't have a rate. We didn't say square miles per something. So what we're going to do is we're just going to move into the denominator. So our cursor is in the denominator, and we're going to delete the denominator. So we're going to just keep hitting delete until the fraction goes away. And then now we're going to change our unit. Right now it's M, but we want it to be, which means meters, but we want it to be miles. So we're going to put MI, and then it's square miles. So we're just going to put squared. So if you notice, what's in the calculator looks so far like what I have written, but we're going to have to change the second fraction. Again, we're not converting to a rate. So we're going to delete the denominator again. And then we want that to say yard squared. So we're going to delete this M and put YD squared. And now we'll just hit enter. And if you notice, it does give us the answer. And actually the format of my calculator, by saying e to the 7, it's really big. If this happens to you, what you can do, we'll fix it. So I'll show you guys. We'll go to File. We'll go to Settings and Status. We'll go to Document Settings. And then in Display Digits, where it says float, just pick a bigger number. I usually just tell people go to 12 because it's going to be big enough. And what's going to do, so I'm going to redo the same thing. I'm just going to go up and copy it. It's now going to actually give me the entire number without putting the e to the 7. The e to the 7 just means, hey, you're going to move the decimal place 7 times. But now we actually see, so looking at our answers here, it's D. And we could have seen that it was D just based off the numbers, but if you ever notice that happens, under Document, you go down to Settings and Status, Document Settings, Display Digits, Float, just make it 12. All right, so unit conversion. As long as you know the units, the calculator can probably do the conversion for you. If you're unaware of what that unit even is, the calculator probably doesn't have it stored in it. So you'd have to do that problem by doing dimensional analysis by hand. All right, number 24. A square is inscribed in a circle. The radius of the circle is 20 root 2 over 2 inches. What is the side length in inches of the square? So we're going to draw this. So I'm going to draw a circle. I didn't like that circle. Thankfully, my thing helps me out. And we're going to put a square inside of it. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. So this one, I'm just going to freehand it. So there's my square. And then they said that the radius is 20 root 2 over 2. So we want to draw the radius so that it nicely touches both the circle and the square. So I'm going to draw the radius here. because you notice it touches nicely in the corner of the square and it touches nicely in the circle. So we know that this radius is 20 root 2 over 2. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is draw the entire across. And the reason why, so I just drew the diameter, is because I just now made a nice right triangle. And I can now say that the entire length of this is just going to be 2 times 20 root 2 over 2, which will just give us 20 root 2. Because I basically did 2 radiuses, or radii. And so 2 of them would just come out to 20 root 2. Well, if you ever make a right triangle out of a square, you are going to be making a 45, 45, 90. And that side ratio of 45, 45, 90 is S, and then the hypotenuse is S root 2. So S root 2. So what we could say is that our S root 2 here is equal to our hypotenuse of our right triangle, which is 20 root 2. And we can now solve for S because that's going to give us what these sides are. So again, I can bring up the calculator and I have an equation. So I can now do menu 3-1 and I could say S square root of 2 should equal 20 square root of 2 comma S. So we get 20. And that's all they're asking for. They're saying, what is the side length of the square? So it's 20. So the big thing with this question is being able to draw the figure correctly. And then that includes drawing the radius correctly. People mistakenly for these questions draw the radius like that. That radius is not good for us because it doesn't touch the circle and the square nicely. It cuts off to touch the square, which we are unfamiliar with how long, how far that distance is, or that length. So that's why drawing the radius to a corner for this problem where it touches both the circle and the square nicely is the way to do it. All right, 25. Which expression is equivalent to all that sort? So again, if they ever say which expression is equivalent, we can pick numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and say x is equal to 3. And here we do have a second letter, excuse me. So I'm going to pick another number. I'm just going to say 4. If there was a third letter, I would just say z is 5. So we can now go into our calculator and we can just type it in. And wherever we see y, we're going to plug in 4. So it's going to be 4 plus 12 over x, which we said is 3. So 3 minus 8 plus control divide 4 parentheses 3 minus 8 over 3 squared times 4 minus 8 times 3 times 4. And we will hit enter. Some people for this like to make it as a decimal. If you feel like you need to make a decimal, do so. I tend to leave it as a fraction. So I'm going to keep going until I get negative 43 over 15. So we're going to go to each answer and we are going to plug in 3 for x and 4 for y until we also get negative 43 over 15. If you feel like, so you do not have to go in order. If you feel like an answer is more correct than another, maybe just by looking at it, you're like, oh, I think this is what it should be. Start with that one. You don't have to start with A. If you have no idea, start anywhere. We're just guessing and checking. So if you already have a guess by looking at it, you may be able to save time and not have to type in as many. So I could look at this and I could say, hey, you know what? I feel like maybe B looks pretty good. So then I'll plug in B. So I'll notice B is a big fraction. So it's going to be xy. So 3 times 4 plus 9 times 4 plus 12 over 3 times 9, 3 squared. Let's fix that 3 squared times 4 minus 8 times 3 times 4 plus 3 minus 8. So we got a different fraction. So the answer is not B. I'm going to go ahead and try C. To me, C maybe is the next best answer. So 3 times 4 squared plus 13 times 3 times 4 minus 8 times 4 over 3 squared times 4 minus 8 times 3 times 4. Boom, I got the same fraction, negative 43 over 15, so the answer is C. If I would just went in order, I eventually would have gotten to C. But again, it may allow you to save a little bit of time if you feel like one answer is probably going to be closer than another. Again, could you do this entire problem by hand? Yes, but some of these look way more intimidating. This one would be much more annoying to do by hand compared to maybe the one we did earlier in the video. Okay. Number 26. So number 26 says, the function f is defined by f of x equals a times 2.2 to the power x plus 2.2 to the power b, where a and b are integer constants, and a is 0 is less than a, which is less than b. So integers just means whole number constant. It could be potentially -0. Now here it can't because they told us that a and b have to be greater than 0. The functions g and h are equivalent to function f, where k and m are constants. So by them saying that the function g and h are equivalent to function f, it means they're all the same function. They're just written in different ways. And by them saying k and m are constants, that also just means that they are numbers. Now, they're not whole numbers. They just mean numbers. Which of the following equations displays the y-coordinate of the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane as a constant or coefficient? So they want to see the y-coordinate of the y-intercept. So the y-intercept, it should be displayed, so shown, as a constant or coefficient. So all this question's asking for is whatever the y-intercept is of our function, it needs to show up as a number in the equation. So if our y-intercept hypothetically was 7, we should see the number 7 in our equation. So they're asking which of these does that. Maybe both do, maybe neither do, maybe one does. So for this question, I actually do believe this is a very challenging question. In my opinion, on this module, this is probably the hardest question. I like Desmos for this question. Again, there are multiple ways to do it. I think Desmos for this allows us to kind of just guess and check. It maybe is not going to be the most efficient thing to do, but Desmos can be very good for us when trying to deal with things where we're kind of like guessing and checking. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph the original function. So f of x equals a parentheses 2.2 to the power x plus 2.2 to the power to the power b. And notice they said add slider. Desmos was asking if we want to add a slider. We're going to hit all. We want to add slider for both. And what we're going to pick values for a and b. I don't love picking 0, 1, 2. So let's pick 3 and 4. What's the issue with picking 3 and 4? These numbers might get pretty big, but it'll do it. So if you notice, our function now is graphed. And we want to see the y-intercept. So if we look, our y-intercept for this function, for all these functions, our y-intercept should be, so again, I'm making a equal 3, b equal 4. Our y-intercept is equal to 73.2768. Okay. So since our y-intercept is 73.2768, that number has to show up in our equation. So if we look at answer choice, if we look at Roman numeral 1, function g of x, we already said a is 3, so really g of x for us is going to be 3 times 2.2 to the power x plus k. So right now in our function, do we see the 73.2768? No. Well, guess what that means k would have to be? That means that k would have to equal 73.2768 for that to be the same, for us to see the y-intercept in the equation, and then it's got to be the same function. So by saying the same function, it means that when we graph function g, it should be exactly on top of our blue function already graphed. So what we're going to do is we're going to graph it. So we're going to go into Desmos. We're going to do g of x equals a times 2.2 to the power x plus, and I'm going to go ahead and just put plus k. And below it, we're going to hit add slider for k. And what did we say k is going to have to be? It's going to have to be 73.2768. And if you notice, the black one, we'll change the color. Let's change the color to green. So g of x is not the same as f of x. But they told us that this has to be equivalent to function f, which means they should be the same exact graph. But here it's not. So then Roman numeral 1 does not work. Nope. So A and C I can cross out. 1 does not show the y-intercept as a number, because when we tried to make it show up as a number, it didn't end up giving us the same graph. So then we could try the second function. And it's going to be the same idea. For that function, we're really kind of saying that it's going to be a, which is 3, times 2.2 to the power x. And same thing as with function g, we need the 73.2768 to show up. So that means that m should equal 73.2768. So we're just going to graph it. So again, I'm going to add another function, another graph. So h of x equals a times 2.2 to the power x plus m. And again, we're going to go ahead and add a slider for m. And what does m have to be? M also would have to be 73.2768 in order for our y-intercept to show up as an equation, or as a number in our equation. So I'm just going to change the color again. To change color, you just click and hold. So it's red. So if you notice, function h of x is very close, but it's not the same function, so it is not equivalent. So that also does not show the y-intercept. So the answer is D. This, to me, is a very hard question. This will probably always be more towards the end of Module 2, as it is here. There are other ways to approach this where you're not using Desmos. I just like this Desmos method because it allows us to visually see it and guess and check. Because by saying equivalent to function f, it just means it should be the same function, but just written in a different way. And here we showed that when we tried to make them show the y-intercept, they didn't end up becoming the same function as f. Okay, last question, 27. It says in the given equation, k is an integer constant. So again, we just said integer means whole number. If the equation has no real solution, what is the least possible value of k? So if they ever tell you that you have a constant and they tell you the number of solutions, we are going to solve for x. So we're going to pull up the calculator. Here it's one equation, so we're going to do menu 3, 1. We're going to do x times, then the parentheses, because we have a letter in front of parentheses, and then k times x minus 56 equals negative 16, and we're solving for x first, so comma x. And when we do that, here we get a square root. So if you ever get a square root, we are going to write down what we get inside the square root. Only what's inside of it. So inside is 49 minus k. I get asked every time, which x do I look at? Do I look at x or y, whatever. Doesn't matter which one. I always say just look at the first x that pops up. We're only going to look inside the square root. But for these, they're the same. So if you notice inside this square root, it's 49 minus k. Inside this square root, it's still 49 minus k. So that's why you can kind of do either one. And here we're going to have to remember this key. So I'm going to do this key. So the key that we use for this is if there are two solutions, we're going to finish the expression that I just wrote down by putting a greater than 0 sign. If there is one solution, we're going to complete it by putting equal 0. And if there's 0 solutions or no solution, we're going to do less than 0. So this question said no real solution, so we're going to do the less than 0. And I'm going to go ahead and use the calculator to solve this inequality. Menu 3, 1. Let me do that correctly. Menu 3, 1. And then again, it's 49 minus k. To get the inequality, we do control, then the equal sign. And we're doing less than 0, comma k. And here we get k is greater than 49. So they want to know what is the least possible value of k. So what is the smallest k can be that's bigger than 49, and it has to be a whole number? So what is the smallest whole number bigger than 49? 50. What we just did is called the discriminant. Again, our calculator just allows us to do the discriminant so much more easily. You are going to have to remember the key here. So this is something you just have to put to memory. Yeah. Again, some of these questions are very common. I think some of them are much harder than others. All these questions I did, multiple ways to do them, some utilizing Desmos, some utilizing our CAS calculator, some just being able to do it by hand. So do whichever way you're comfortable with. Again, I'm a big fan of Desmos and the calculator because as long as we type things in correctly, it won't make a arithmetic mistake. But again, it's all what's going to be that happy balance of getting questions correct and doing them in a timely, efficient way. So it's just up to you. So keep reviewing these and good luck on the test.